These comments are lit. They call for a video. And an ecologist shall answer. Well, hello there all the absolutely magnificent people, and welcome back to another episode of An Ecologist Plays. We talk about nature while playing games. And well, the comments have spoken. We are back in Empires of the Undergrowth, and as requested, we are going to be playing on the new map. And we are going to be playing it as the Formica Ereptors. So there we go, there is the Causeway Chowder map. We're going to be playing on hard difficulty. And we're going to be playing as the Gene Thief ants here. And well, the Formica Ereptors are going all in here with the rapid fire wood ants, the vigorous fire ants, the major driver ant soldiers, and of course, the super soldiers of the big-headed ants. So these are the ones we are going for. Let's see whether we can beat this level with our lovely little colony. And in this foreign land, the Formica Ereptors have to very quickly gain a foothold. The priority will now be food, because without food, this army will not survive. Luckily, there's plenty of food that's buried in this nest here where the Formica Ereptors have started establishing their colony. Food that was left here when the previous tide buried a whole bunch of unfortunate invertebrates in the sand. The important thing is for this colony to very quickly gain as much food as possible in order to start fielding their army. Additionally, the colony requires soldiers, and this colony has decided to start with the rapid-fire wood ants as their first line of attack. And now with the first wood ants as part of their force, the Formica Ereptors are feeling much more secure and willing to take a few risks in getting their food. It's almost time to head outside. But before they can do that, the nest is under attack. Under cover of nightfall, crabs are digging into the nest. And whether this colony can withstand this initial onslaught is yet to be determined. But if this first assault proves fatal, they never would have stood a chance against a big green crab. The first crab is starting to dig just around the tunnels of the Formica Ereptor nest. It won't be long before it digs through and finds its way to the queen. But it seems another crab has instead found its way into the nest. It's now up to the Formica Ereptors to attack this intruder in the nest, and to show it it's not welcome here. However, at the same time, some devil's coach horse beetle larvae have been uncovered by workers looking for food, but they are no match for the defensive wood ants. A larger hermit crab, however, has also dug into the nest and proved a bit more of a challenge for these Formica Ereptors. But now it seems as though all threats have been eliminated, at least for now. It is time for the colony to venture outside and face whatever dangers await out there. Spiders and devil's coach horse beetle larvae fall between the marching column of Formica Ereptor ants, consisting of the Formica Ereptor workers and the wood ants that have been enslaved by their overlords. This could be seen as zoonosis, which is a form of social parasitism, where the Formica Ereptors here are making use of the wood ants' social behavior to take care of the Formica Ereptor overlords, similar to the slave maker ants we had observed previously. These wood ants do not view themselves as wood ants. According to them, they are Formica Ereptor ants. If this colony is to survive, it must expand. Fire ants should do nicely. But this beach is no easy hunting ground. There are many large creatures that call this beach home. And the first is the sand lizard, Lacerta agilis. This is indeed a very interesting species. As the name suggests, it is found in sandy environments like beachfronts, and in the far north of their range, they are almost exclusively found on beaches where the sand can heat up in the sun's rays and then heat up the lizard enough for them to survive. They are very widespread, occurring in parts of Europe and Asia, and generally confined to, as mentioned, sandy environments. However, here in the UK, where it is set, these lizards are unfortunately becoming rarer, largely due to habitat fragmentation and habitat destruction. They are in need of some conservation efforts, and it does not help their case that there is now also Formica Ereptor to contend with. The typical terrors on the beach, though, are also still present. Beetles like these tiger beetles and these ladybird beetles are still terrorizing the local wildlife. But they are increasingly becoming prey for these Formica Ereptors. even the large devil's coach horse beetle will not be able to withstand the onslaught of these ants for long. The only thing that may prove fatal we have yet to encounter. The sand lizard has claimed its first victim, a fire ant that had strayed from the marching column of this ant colony. Her death, however, will not be in vain, as soon a horde of ants will respond to the alarm pheromones secreted as she was crushed to death. The sand lizard will soon meet its match. This male here, bright green in color, is likely trying to attract a female with his bright colors. But this is where his journey ends. The Formica ereptor colony marches on, ready to attack this new foe. With wood ants firing acid on it, the fire ants injecting their Solenopsis venom into it, and the Formica ereptor workers just biting for all they are worth, the sand lizard will soon be killed and fed to the colony. He has, however, managed to put up a surprisingly strong defense, with its tough scales resisting the bites and the stings of the Formica ereptors. It almost seems as though victory is within his grasp. However, there are more fire ants vigorously approaching, and eventually they do overcome its tough defenses, slaying this once mighty dragon upon the UK shores. And now, of course, this is a very nice source of food for the Formica ereptor colony. Now, as they are gathering this, there is something interesting to note about the Lacertidae, the family to which the sand lizards belong, as we are just going to also send our wood ants back to the colony to defend the queen. It's interesting to note that the Lacertidae here naturally occur in Europe, Asia, and Africa. And there's a particular point where to the west of a certain line you will find Lacertidae, and to the east thereof you will not find it. And that line runs between Asia and Australia. It's known as the Wallace Line, named after Russell Wallace, a famous biologist that first described this line. To the east and south thereof, in Australasia, you do not actually have any Lacertidae occurring there naturally. And that's surprising because these islands are not very far apart, as you can see there. Yet on one side of that line you will find these lizards, and on the other side not. And that's because, well, these are actually two very different tectonic plates, and as a result have very different evolutionary histories. And because these lizards tend to not swim over expanses of water, they never crossed from the one tectonic plate where they evolved to the Australasian plate where they did not evolve. And that's a very interesting thing to note with biogeography there. A big European shore crab, also known as the green crab, has invaded the Formica ereptor nest. It has put up quite an attack. However, eventually it is also slain. With its tough shell, the crabs generally are able to withstand attacks from these ants. However, eventually they are all worn down, with the acid sprayed on them by the wood ants and the Solenopsis venom of the fire ants coursing through their bodies. After this night's assault, the Formica ereptors wisely decide to start nurturing stronger fire ants as part of their army. And as their strength grows, more and more fire ants are able to join the fray. Emboldened by the numbers, the Formica ereptors start excavating further into the soil around their queen, eager to bring more food to the colony, to grow their numbers even more, and eventually take on the ultimate threat on this beach. As night turns into day and the remains on the beach are ready to be plundered by the Formica ereptors, this colony decides that it is time to start hatching another ant species. This time it is Phylae morrisi, the big-headed ant. And having nothing to fear but fear itself, the colony marches on. And even the largest of the rove beetles in the area truly stand no chance. As night descends upon the beach once more, crabs are again burrowing into the Formica ereptor nest, ready to either kill the queen or eat her brood. The super soldiers of the Phylae morrisi, combined with the Solenopsis fire ants, are putting up a massive defense. But is it enough to take care of this green crab? It seems probably not. It is time to call in the reinforcements, for quite a few more green crabs have dug into the nest. It is interesting to note that the scientific name of these green crabs, of these shore crabs here, is Carcinus mainas. And that Carcinus there is very interesting because, well, that does refer to crab. And if you have ever heard of the term carcinization, well, that is where that term comes from. Carcinization is the evolution of a creature to look like a crab or to resemble a crab. Because, well, a lot of the crustaceans that we tend to call crabs are not actually true crabs. They're not related to these true crabs over here. Like the hermit crabs, for example, they are a little bit different, and there are squat lobsters and all kinds of other species of crustaceans that kind of resemble crabs, but they're not related to true crabs. And that process of things evolving to end up looking like crabs, well, that is just called carcinization. In other words, turning into a crab. So why do you want to look like a crab? Because, well, crabs are quite well suited for life in the marine environment. Their body shape, they're well armored, they're able to withstand attacks by most predators quite well. They've got their pincers that they can use to maneuver prey with. They've got 10 limbs and they can move surprisingly fast and quite effectively with those limbs. So why would you not want to be a crab? That's a more pertinent question. But the Formica-ereptors here have one ant that has not yet been part of their colony, and that will be the black driver ant. It is time for them to join the army. And there we go. The first Dorylus nigricans, the black driver ant. Having all but exhausted the food supply to the west of the nest, the Formica-ereptor ants turn their compound eyes to the east. But the bounty to the east is also protected. Another adult male sand lizard, a rival to the one slain earlier, guards this section of the beach, and it will not tolerate the Formica-ereptors intruding on its territory. Again, putting up a valiant effort, it initially appears as though it may win the day. However, the ant marching column appears endless, and eventually this male is also slain, becoming fuel for the ever-increasing war engine. The sun is setting, and with it more crabs will attempt burrowing into this Formica-ereptor nest. This time, however, the soldiers defending the queen are more numerous than ever before. The invasion starts innocently enough. A hermit crab, protected by the shell of a marine snail, a little gastropod, making its way into the nest, joined by another, and another even bigger one. And another big one, and eventually joined by another green crab bulldozing its way into the nest. The troops from outside are recalled. It is time to defend the nest. As more and more and more green crabs invade the nest, it almost appears as though defense is futile. However, the Formica-ereptors are no mere mortal colony. They have been bred over generations to be the fiercest fighting machines imaginable. Eventually, even the fiercest of the green crabs fall before the rage of the Formica-ereptors. The message is clear: none shall stand. The black driver ants, blind as they may be, follow the pheromone trail set by their sisters, finding the carcass of another green crab on the shore. It will now be used to sustain this colony in the fight to come. The beach has been picked clean, except for a carcass that has washed up on the shore. This would be a bounty for any colony. However, peering through the sand below, two eyes watch, missing nothing. This is another shore crab, Carcinus mainas. The Formica-ereptors decide on a bold approach. Send in the old fire ants first. Let them be slaughtered by this menace below the sand. And once they have been slain, bring forth fresh soldiers. With a massive explosion, the shore crab appears. Armed with massive pincers and a hard armored body, this one is sure to withstand the onslaught of these beleaguered fire ants. Now, it is interesting to note that the shore crab we have here is in fact a slate greyish color, And that is actually very much what you would expect from one of these shore crabs in this environment, in this muddy environment. In sandy shores, like this one here, they tend to be grayer or browner in color. But if you find them in rocky pools, they very often have what we call disruptive camouflage. More contrasting dark and light, almost more vivid colors. But the idea is that those brighter colors and those contrasting colors will blend in with the rocky shore environment, whereas this slate gray almost here would blend in a little bit more with the estuarine mud and other sandy environments. Now, this crab is a highly invasive species. You will find them naturally in Europe, hence the name European shore crab, but they are invasive in many parts of the world. In North America, for example, they are invasive. In Argentina, there are a whole bunch of them, and they have also established here in South Africa as well. Particularly in Cape Town area, they are already found, and even here in the Garden Route, we are expecting them to appear at any given point in time. So unfortunately, they are a real menace. And yeah, it is an indigenous species here where this map is set, and I do therefore feel bad that our invasive Formica eripter ants are killing this one here. But this is just another stepping stone in the Formica eripter's quest for world domination. And I would actually feel less bad if they were destroying these crabs in an area where they were not native. Anyway, back to the fight. Roaring, the shore crab slams their pincers down on the sand, killing most of the fire ants that form part of the Formica eripter colony. And now it is time for the rest of the colony to march forward, slowly but surely finding weak points in the armor of this massive crab, and slowly but surely injecting venom into its body until it is slain. And as it crashes to the ground, the Formica eripters have proven why they are such a menace to society. And well, with that concludes our quest in the new map. So thank you very much everyone for joining me on our little adventure here. Hope you had fun. I'll be back next week with a bit of Windrose. So join me then for a nautical adventure where we'll be talking about islands and island biogeography and why on earth dodos were so big, and a whole bunch of other fun stuff. Until next time everybody, stay safe. I'll see you all soon. Cheers!